I would argue that GoPros and real steady or stabilization are what got FPV drones on the market for professionalism, but the Red Komodo and cinema cameras that are small are what kickstarted it. But those cameras don't have stabilization, and it's becoming a problem, right? It's really easy to get a good look out of the cameras, but that stabilization look is one that we're getting used to. You know, flying big drones like these, they don't fly quite as well as 5-inch. So I want to find a way to make cinema cameras work best for me. And that's why I've decided to take another look at GyroFlow. A recent update made it possible and easier than ever to make that stabilized footage look really good. So let's evaluate together whether or not GyroFlow is going to work for us. So let's go on an adventure and find out together. Our first test stop was a skate park where we used the FreeFly Wave to film an RC car jumping off ramps in super slow motion. On this step of the GyroFlow test process, we've got the FreeFly Wave strapped to the whoop lifter from Catalyst Machine Works, and we're using the Insta360 1R to be our gyro data log. And then we're gonna go ahead and chase my RC car. This is the Arma Big Rock. We should be able to get some good jumps off of this, so the goal is to use this super slow motion, get some cool chase shots of this thing jumping off of some of the ramps here at the Major Taylor Skate Park. So the goal here is to kind of showcase 1, the slow motion, 2, combined with GyroFlow, and then 3, chasing. Chasing, you kind of always make little corrections to try to keep whatever you're trying to film in frame. You're always making just like little bitty, tiny corrections, and while it is possible to keep it smooth just with your fingers, I think there's the opportunity here to test it with GyroFlow, with chasing something around, with, you know, having this thing jump in the air. So it's kind of a combination of we're doing slow-mo, we're doing chasing, and we're doing GyroFlow. Let's get to it. When reviewing the footage, we found that the slow motion negated the necessity for further stabilization. Despite that, we wanted to also showcase that GyroFlow would work on any camera, even this super slow-mo option. Alright, so we were just here chasing the RC car and Houdini showed up. He's a skater, local guy, just is here to hang out.
Just out of nowhere.
20 degrees. I don't know what he's doing out here without even a coat, but hey, good on you, man. But so he volunteered to do a line through the course for us, so we're gonna try to chase him and see if we can get anything. He's fresh to this park, so we gotta kind of figure out his process, and then I gotta make sure, like, you know, because as he's going up and down ramps, he's gonna change speed, so I don't want to hit him, so I'm gonna feel that out, look at all that. I'm really excited to see what we get. Let's get after it. The drone may not have been the right tool for the job with Houdini, but part of the fun is being willing to take a chance with whatever opportunities you are given. Okay, so we swapped over to the BGH1 instead of the FreeFly Wave, and now we're going to do a little bit of chase footage of Winston flying his drone, and we're going to film his drone with a city lifter. We don't have a lot of good chase subjects right now. It's so cold that, like, getting somebody out here to, like, you know, run on the velodrome track or like something that you would actually chase. So we're gonna film drones with really expensive cameras instead. We're sticking with the Insta360 1R as our GyroFlow logger and switching over to the BGH1 on top of the whoop lifter. Let's get it. So in order to do the black box logging, you can use a bunch of different devices. I use the Insta360 1R, but you can actually use your flight controller with black box. You can use an external flight controller with black box that you mount to it, but I just prefer using a camera because I know that this is going to stop and start recording every time. It gives me a cool, like, VTS angle whenever I'm flying. Or what I wanted to find was a really good way to mount it to camera. So what I've done is I've actually taken a GoPro sticky mount, kept the sticky on there so it's kind of a pad so that it will kind of like grip onto something, and then I drilled a hole straight through it. So I actually just took a drill bit and drilled a hole all the way through it. so that I can stick a bolt straight through the sticky mount. So this bolt is 1/4 20, which is the same size as like every single camera plate, every single camera accessory. So here on my BGH1, I can get this perfectly mounted up in place, just kind of make sure that it's pointed the right direction. And now this is not going to go anywhere ever. And then I can take whatever camera, put it on in the same orientation, and just make sure that the orientation matches the camera. And now I have the black box log out of this camera. I've got a BTS shot with a 360 camera where I can look anywhere around the drone, which is pretty cool. It's not ideal in terms of weight distribution, unfortunately. It kind of makes the mass a little bit high, so eventually I'm going to figure out a way to either mount it down or lower or whatever. Having this logging device affixed to the primary camera will give you the best results with GyroFlow later. Well, I chose to use the Insta360 for gyro logging. Any gyro-enabled camera can be used for gathering up that data. A GoPro, a flight controller with black box, and even some cameras like the Sony FX6 have that data built in. It's just about using the tool that's best for you. Personally, I like the consistency of using another camera, even though there is a weight penalty, but it creates more opportunities than issues for me. Looking over this footage, I'm seeing the beautiful lens flares, the incredible motion blur in the grass and near objects, and I don't see nearly as much of the terrible stretching that GoPro Wide combined with Real Steady puts on its footage. All that GyroFlow is doing is taking the edge off the footage and making it just a touch smoother and more digestible. The next step on the trip was to do some more scenic shots with the combination. Oftentimes, the goal of a CineWhoop is to be able to do some nice, smooth, scenic movements to capture the space that you're in by hitting gaps and keeping everything nice and tight in proximity where other drones couldn't capture in that way. GyroFlow is what's going to allow us to turn what's already pretty smooth flying into that cinematic, buttery, near gimbaled look that we're looking for. For our final stop of the day, we were wanting to find something that was a little bit more whoop-centric. While the chasing footage we had earlier was nice, it's something that we could have easily considered doing with a 5-inch drone or something bigger, but we wanted to take advantage again of the opportunity that this whoop combined with GyroFlow gave us. As a result, we found our way over to Turf Burner's RC Raceway to chase some RC cars ripping around a track. We're here at Turf Burner's RC Raceway, put together by my buddy Jamie, who was a drone enthusiast, now is a return to RC car enthusiast, and we're trying to use this. It's like in this environment, I would definitely use a CineWhoop, right, to try to chase this. and this is a big cine whoop. So let's cine whoop it and see what happens. So we're trying to get some batteries in here. We've got just a few minutes left to tackle this, but I think we can get some cool stuff just with that little bit of time.
Left from the hood and you can't go back. Trained in the ways of the ancient fact. Blazing the pace with the trees all stacked. Making the waves push people back.
When it came to stabilizing this footage with GyroFlow, I wasn't necessarily trying to take all of the bips, boops, and bumps out, but instead to put a taste of stabilization on top of it to make the cars stand out a little bit. When you're trying to fly around a course like this in anger, as fast as you can to keep up with those insanely fast drivers, you start to make lots of little corrections that need to be controlled. I used GyroFlow to just take the edge off, rather than make the whole image sterile and smooth.
Making my way through the night just left from the hood and you can't go back. Trained in the ways of the ancient fact. Blazing the pace with the trees all stacked. Making the waves push people back. People back. Hit the park, stance is yoga. Really twisted, far from sober. Overcoaster, rum and coca. Going loca, showing no love. Drop with the party's wave. Solo dude, I don't move the brains. Got your wifey in a state. Pulled up looking like I made a paint to this crazy late. Kick it with the vampire, slang higher, roll with the witty finesse. Like Super T. Dude said he's the best, well it's news to me. Super mean, ride on the rhythm, I cruise the beat. She starts off when I don't usually, but I name. If you're in the block with a whip then raise up a hand on my lighter. Murderous phrases, I'm hyper. Making my way through the night just. If you're in the block or a whip just raise up a hand on a lighter. Murderous phrases, I'm hyper. Making my way through the night just.
And unfortunately, at the end of our filming over at Turf Burners, we had to rush out of there and get home to be able to film an episode of the Good Flight podcast. So if you haven't seen that yet, definitely go check out the episodes of the Good Flight. We talk about all things FPV, drones, drone related. Usually we have a little bit of a slight focus on filming and filmmaking, but I think you guys will like that if you're interested. But I wanted to give you a quick example of what it's like working with GyroFlow. I'm not going to go into like super detail on any of this stuff, but I just wanted to give you a taste of what it's like, and then I'm going to kind of do a whole other video where I go through the whole process of doing GyroFlow and what all of that's like. So first of all, you just open it, and then you pick the file that you want to stabilize. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a sneak peek of a project that we have coming up, where we went to the United States Air Force Museum and filmed that with a cine lifter for the purpose of using it with GyroFlow. It's going to be an awesome episode. It's going to come out very soon, but we're going to use one of the clips from there just kind of as a teaser for that episode. You come to the shoot day, find the BGH1, and I want to do this clip 388. It kind of thinks for a second, and then you want to choose your lens profile. So if you go into this thing, you can search for Panasonic, BGH1, all of these different options are in here. The one that I want to use is actually not added to the database on this version yet, so I'm just going to go pull it from my computer. It's literally the same thing as just typing in, but it has it matched up with the dimensions of the camera, with the frame rate of the camera, all of that stuff, and then I can go in, and then, so that just adds the camera and the lens profile, so there's no stabilization in here. If you watch it, it's just playing back like normal. All of the shakes and wobbles and stuff are in there. But if we go in here and we click motion data, we can add the gyro file that we're going to be using to stabilize that. Now, in our case, we shot it with a GoPro, so we're going back into United States Air Force, shoot day, GoPro, and then I just know that this is the clip here that we're going to be using. So, motion data, I've chosen this one. IMU orientation, we want X, Y, Z. You can use different ones. For example, X, Z, Y will move the data around in a little bit of different ways. X, Y, Z is the one that we want. So if we want to flip X, we can do lowercase x or capital X. A lot of complicated stuff. Don't worry about it for now. But basically, you use that to control lining up the gyro data with your actual data from the camera, from what it actually physically sees on the thing. And then you can also, like, for example, rotate the camera by clicking this rotation box. You know, so if I needed to change like, for example, if I recorded footage with my black box log on my flight controller and it was at 0 degrees, but the camera has slight up tilt, we need to change the degrees of that flight controller data to match the up tilt of the camera. So we need to bump it by like 20 degrees, for example. Now my Panasonic and the gyro logger are oriented the same, so I don't want to change the rotation. You choose an integration method. I usually use Magwick, and then we are ready. Over here on this side, there's this thing called autosync. A couple different parameters. Again, I'll cover it in a detail more, but for now, we should be able to just click autosync, and it's going to automatically analyze about I set 5 points of the video to do a GyroFlow analysis, and that means that it's doing some sort of optical flow sort of thing. It's going to then take the gyro data and try its best to align the gyro data with the optical flow data, and then it will do that in those 5 points across the video so that the whole thing is split and nicely organized. And usually that process works, and we'll be able to see it working here in a second. So just give it a second. It usually doesn't take very long at all. So now what it's done is it's populated some of these gyro traces alongside of the optical flow data. So you can see that these little dots all showed up here. That's the optical flow data. And if you look closely, you can see that there's a little white line that is now inside of our gyro data. And it's only in these certain spots. But what that's showing is it's traced the optical flow data against the gyro data and made sure that it's actually tracking the same information as what's being shown on the screen. And you'll see that it's done that in 5 different spots. So if you look again here, you can see that it's roughly the same. If we go here to the end, it's, you know, again, roughly tracing the same. And this is, again, where you'd use this IMU orientation. For example, if the red was up top, but it's actually on the bottom, you can flip that IMU and make sure that it actually aligns. So, again, complicated, not a lot of explanation as to what's happening. I'll do a full video on how to actually do all of this stuff later. But if you watch, we've got all of the autosync points in place, and it's starting to stabilize. So if I go in here and I click this button, which turns off stabilization, you can see that there's like those slight little corrections and stuff that I'm making to make sure that the drone is staying in the air. And then if we turn it back on, it goes back into that flow state, that juicy, real steady like look, etc. So that's kind of how we're going about it. And there's tons of different options that you can play around with, like the smoothness level. So I can turn it way down and it's going to be a lot more like the original flight, but still have a little bit of smoothness, or I can start cranking it way back up and it gets a little bit more smooth, and then I can turn it all the way up and now everything is as buttery smooth as you can, but it generally like crops in a little bit more, right? It's taking away some of that field of view away from what you would otherwise be shooting. But there, again, tons of options. We'll go over all of the options in a future video. For the final product, used something like 66 to 70% smoothing, and then I usually have a smoothing window somewhere in the like 2 seconds range. But that's all of the powerful options that you've got there. So now that you know how to roughly like what all of the options are, we go into exporting. We can use or not use GPU encoding. GPU encoding does not currently support 10-bit 422 ProRes. So you have to do it with CPU encoding. I happen to have an iCPU, so it's not super bad, but it can take a little bit of time with that. But you can export it as ProRes, as ProRes 444, 444 extra quality. You know, export it as a PNG sequence in up to 16-bit color. You can do, you know, H.264, 265. I do 265 usually. Turn off GPU encoding, and then you can choose where it's going to output to here on the bottom and export. I don't want it to export because I don't want to override what else is already there. But you can see that the GyroFlow workflow is a lot simpler than it used to be, right? Everything is here in the same window. You don't have to muddle around with too much stuff. As long as you have your lens profile built, which is really easy to create a lens profile. I can show you how to do that as well in this future video. But having, you know, you just take the clip from your camera, you put the gyro data on there, auto sync, assuming everything is working good. It's going to be nice and simple, and then voila. I just wanted to throw out a final, you know, if you enjoyed watching this video about GyroFlow and all of this stuff, please like and subscribe, comment that you liked it so that I know to do more of it. I'm going to do a full video diagnosing how to use all of GyroFlow and make that more of like a tutorial thing, like this is how you actually get get it working and get it usable for the things that you need. It doesn't have to be a cinema camera. You could, for example, stabilize DVR if you wanted to. Like, it doesn't matter. And that's what's so cool about GyroFlow. Be sure to go and give some love and comments and likes to everybody that helped make GyroFlow. All the links in the description below are to their products. A special shout out to Adrian, who was extremely helpful for me in learning and getting proficient at it and being able to like really dive in and make it do stuff that I wanted it to do. I couldn't have done it without you, Adrian. Thank you. For everybody else, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Stay flying.